All righty, here we go. Hello and welcome, everyone. My name is Joe Kappa. I am the project manager for the Office of Academic Innovation Operations and Technology, and I am your host for this session, Higher Education Jeopardy: Engaging Perspectives and Collaborative Solutions. By joining us today, you acknowledge that this session is being recorded and will be shared with TLC-related materials. Microphones will be muted for this presentation, but we encourage you to post questions and comments in the chat. Also, we have enabled live transcription. If you would like to use it, click the Show Captions button at the bottom of your Zoom window. Now I am pleased to introduce you to Dr. Brian Elward, the AVP of the Office of Academic Innovation Operations and Technology, who is going to introduce his team and take us into Jeopardy. Brian, take it away.
All right. Thanks, Joe. Appreciate it. Welcome everybody. We're excited. This is going to be a fun and engaging session here, kind of going through some trivia. It's not quite in the Jeopardy style, just so you're aware. We've kind of transitioned it more into trivia, question and answers, just to make it a little bit easier and engaging for everybody. So as Joe said, my name is Dr. Brian Aylward. I am the AVP over the Office of Academic Innovation Operations and Technology. I'm going to pass it around so everybody can introduce themselves and where they're coming from. So Stephanie.
Brian, hi everybody. My name is Stephanie Kilby. I am our Director of Student Success here at the University of Arizona Global Campus. I'm so excited for this session. We hope that you will engage with us. We will use the chat to get your ideas. Feel free to put additional questions in the chat if you'd like to build off of any of the conversation. And we really want to take this session wherever you'd like it to go. I'm so excited to be here and to get this started. Cole?
Thanks, Stephanie. Hi, everybody. My name is Cole McFerrin. I'm Associate Director of Academic Technology and Innovation here at University of Arizona Global Campus. I didn't really think about the timing of our session today, but it's like a perfect lunch slot. So yeah, just enjoy some Jeopardy and hearing the insights of our panel today that we've been able to be fortunate enough to have here in our presence today. Garvey, would you like to introduce yourself?
Certainly. My name is Garvey Pike. I am the Executive Director of the Center for Teaching and Learning at UNC Charlotte. And my co-panelist.
Hey, everybody. I'm Andy. I'm the Chief Learning Officer at the Penn Foster Group. And I know I worked with a lot of you back in the day, and it's exciting to see everyone. Looking forward to a fun session.
Thanks, guys. Really appreciate Garvey and Andy kind of taking the time out of their day to join us. Just a little bit of context on how we're going to go through this game. It is set up very similar to Jeopardy. We have our six kind of topics we're going to work through, hot topics in higher education. Stephanie's going to help kind of navigate through the questions. As you're kind of following along here, you can keep track of your score. You can kind of just enjoy it and try to see if you know the answers. We do have it broken up where we'll have questions for the audience where we would like you guys to kind of add your answers into the chat because there's likely multiple answers and kind of give you ideas on how other institutions are kind of either leveraging the work or implementing it at their institutions. We do have questions specifically for the panel with Garvey and Andy kind of helping to provide a little bit more background and insight into perhaps how their institutions are doing things with AI or student success or whatever the topic is. And then we do have just normal question and answer trivia. So just feel free to answer. You can throw it in the chat if you'd like. To Stephanie's point, if you guys have additional follow-up questions or anything unique about the question that's asked, please feel free to put it in the chat as well. Really want you guys to kind of hopefully walk away with some sort of nuggets of information that you can leverage back in the work that you're doing at your institution or whatnot. So as we kind of get things going, I'll pass it to Stephanie to kind of help guide us through which question. I know she put a poll in the Whova app. I'm not sure if anybody answered it, but where are we starting here today, Stephanie?
Well, we got a bunch of answers from people as they entered, and the question was really around what category should we start with? And I love seeing the engagement because it was a tight race, but near and dear to my heart is student success and retention, and that's where we're going first for 200, please.
Student success and retention for 200. All right. What is the rate at which students persist from year to year? For those of you who are not familiar with this, you definitely should become familiar with it. It's definitely a huge part of a lot of the work happening at your institutions, but that is called the retention rate, year-over-year retention rate. Next question, Stephanie.
Yeah, let's stay in the same category and go to the $400 question.
All right. This is an audience question, so please make sure you put your answers in the chat. This type of student success program pairs new students with experienced students to provide guidance, support, and encouragement. I love that we've got some champs calls in there. Marie, you are correct. The answer is a peer mentoring program. Great job.
Before we move on to the next question, I'd love to ask Andy or Garvey if you have any thoughts on peer mentoring. That's something that's fairly common. We hear a lot about it. There's been research done. Anything innovative or that we should consider when it comes to peer mentoring for our students?
Garvey, you want me to go? You want to go? Yeah, so we've been exploring actually peer mentoring for maybe the last 6-7 months. I don't know how much you guys know about the Penn Foster Group. Part of our challenge is that we're really large. So there's 300,000 students that are part of the Penn Foster Group. And so like, how do you manage a peer mentoring program at that scale? So some of the things that we've been looking at are actual social communities that are designed specifically for peer interactions and like peer mentoring. We've looked at 3 or 4. One actually we looked at as part of our collaboration with DeVry, and they had actually licensed a product that it had some success with. And then we've also been exploring how we might integrate, and this is a bit of a jump to another topic, but how we would integrate like a large language model chatbot into that peer mentoring community, so that there's also like a resource that's sitting behind like a knowledge base that's more specific to us, but also that could provide like Q&A to students beyond the peer mentor. So we're thinking about a specific product designed for more like social community as opposed to like just Facebook. And then the integration of like a chatbot with a large language model, which is like trained by us, so it has specific answers for our type of model and curriculum. We haven't deployed anything yet, but we're probably 4 or 5 months in discovery with a goal to launch something in 2025.
Amazing. We'll be sure to watch for more on that as that launches. And it makes me think of the plenary that we had the opportunity to attend this morning with Dr. Pritz, and the thought about how do we use technology for the better to assist and to support the things that we want to do at scale. So thanks for adding that in, Andy. Another category that we had some engagement around in the poll was workforce readiness. So how about if we jump over to workforce readiness for 200?
Ooh, this is the panel question. So there's no right or wrong answer, but we want to know your opinions. What soft skill is highly sought after by employers?
Well, the big one's communication. We hear that constantly. I've been hearing that since going back. We did a big workforce readiness thing when I was in K-12 back in the mid-90s. And what we're hearing from local employers then were 2 things: critical thinking skills and communication skills. And that includes listening, speaking, and writing. And yeah, just from a personal, experience standpoint, communication skills have probably carried me further in my career than I could have ever attributed to any other skill that I've worked on. So it's no doubt that employers are looking for that kind of thing.
Yeah, +1. So I think it's interesting the different like terms we use. When I first joined Penn Foster, I was stuck on skills that transcend, but that didn't stick. And so we actually use durable skills. Soft skills obviously is probably even more common. I think those of you who have been unfortunate enough to have to sit through an Andy lecture, you've heard me talk a lot about critical thinking. So I'll skip that, but if I had to pick one, I'd pick critical thinking. If you look at like the top things that employers are looking for, they're often the top 3 or 4, if they're not specifically saying it, are disguised as critical thinking, right? Complex problem solving, etc. The one that I'm really focused on in my own work is AI literacy skills. I think we really need to train, equip students with the ability to understand a little bit of what's behind the veil of AI so that it sort of demystifies us a little bit, and then really understand how to leverage it well, and then how to not, like where you shouldn't use it. So AI literacy for me is one that I think is increasingly important.
Fantastic. Thank you both. And just think of how much that's changed, with the workforce going mobile and being all over the world, and a lot of us working from home a lot of the time, and trying to prepare students for that new workforce workplace. There's a new interesting layer to that onion for sure. Where next?
Well, why don't we stay with workforce readiness, because I'm very excited and interested in this conversation. Let's just go to 400 and see what's behind that number.
All right, we've got another panel question. What is a mismatch between job seeker skills and employers' needs called?
You want me to answer that? That's your skills gap, right? And that's just what we were talking about. And then there are other things too that are very specific. So one thing that we do at Charlotte is we work with local employers to identify what those skills gaps are, even in their existing workforce. And right, how can we help upskill and reskill existing employees within those organizations? And that's, I think, what a lot of the modern universities are doing, is that we have to engage the learner from 6 to 60 and beyond for these kinds of things.
Yeah, maybe just for what it's worth, I gave like an interesting example. Well, I think it's interesting. Penn Foster Group, one of the sort of claims to fame is they are very strong in the B2B space. So we're typically like your Fortune 500's online high school solution, right? And so that's also true of our vet tech program, like Petco, PetSmart, like you name it. Like we're their B2B partner for vet tech. And one of the things we've heard recently is this notion of perseverance, that students they don't have as much resiliency or grit or perseverance as they'd like them to. And like imagine being, a vet tech during the pandemic, with the increase of pets and being understaffed and having to like work with some pretty intense situations and concerned, emotional clients. So we heard directly for them that they wanted to see more focus on grit, perseverance, resilience in the program. And so that was a gap that we were able to address through that direct collaboration and partnership.
Something I think about quite a bit is not just the skills gap in that students are not leaving an institution with the skills needed, but rather sometimes it's that they have the skills, but they don't know how to talk about them with confidence. They don't connect the dots between what they've learned in the classroom to what they're going to be asked to do in their chosen industry. Any thoughts around how institutions can connect those dots in a more effective way to give students confidence in speaking to the skills that they pick up?
I mean, one of the end products that we're starting to see come to market a little more and get broader acceptance is sort of like almost like an annotated transcript, right? Your college transcript might say what classes you took, but there's been sort of a movement towards like, what are those durable skills that you're bringing with you? I know like micro credentials also fits into that, and stackable credentials and those kinds of things, because those might translate for potential employers, and actually in that meta piece for the learner themselves, right? Like what skills have they actually acquired through this, and helping them, really helping them tell their own story back to them. Like, here's what you actually did and achieved and have earned.
Fantastic, thank you. Okay, Marie wants us to go big or go home. I think she meant to say. No, I'm kidding. We're not going home yet. Marie wants us to go big. And if I know anything about Marie, I'm going to say she wants us to go to student engagement. So let's go student engagement for 1,000.
And it's an audience question. So please type in the chat, how can faculty extend student engagement outside of the classroom? What are some ways to do that?
This feels like a daily double. So anybody that puts in chat, feel free to give yourself double the points on this question. $2,000 around how can faculty
Lot of
exceed
money.
student engagement.
Cole's gonna send you guys a check, whoever wins.
It's on the way.
It's on the way. We got some great answers going in there. Office hours, Zoom office hours, study groups and cohorts, UAGC Connect, it's great. Participating in student organizations is a great call. Live learning, encourage student organization participation and leadership opportunities. These are all great. I think the answer we had on here as one of them is social media groups and kind of encouraging students to engage in social media groups as well. So
I particularly love the Zoom calls. I love any opportunity where you can engage with a student individually and really build off of where they are. Make those individual recommendations for student groups, for resources, put a face with the name. So love seeing that. Love the live learning. Oh, Joe, thank you,
yeah,
podcasting.
podcasting. I think,
Absolutely.
Joe, you're presenting on podcasts during the conference here, so I don't know if you've done that already or not, but
Actually, right after you guys.
oh, nice. Well,
Yep.
Everybody should transition over there. All right,
Thank
want to move
you.
on to another one, Stephanie?
Yeah, let's stay in student engagement and go 400.
All right, this is a panel question. So the Department of Education uses these two adjectives to describe the interactions between online college students and faculty. Two adjectives.
Regular and substantive.
Boom.
Oh. Do you guys have any examples on how you're really monitoring and ensuring that that's happening at your institution and how you can continue to build faculty into doing their responses in a way that really meets the standards for
Yeah. Well, I want to share mine real quick, Harvey, since I got the mic, and I'll pass it over to you. I think Garvey's example is going to probably be more relative for you all. So just for what it's worth, Penn Foster Group does not accept, we don't deal with Title IV loans. So we don't have as much Department of Ed regulation, but we are nationally accredited and we have a lot of specialized accreditation. So we still have to maintain some semblance of this. But the way that we do it is actually students can have a one-on-one appointment with a faculty anytime they want. They can chat with our faculty anytime they want. They can email a question anytime they want. And then they can do office hours and live sessions. But it's by choice. You don't have to. And so when a student, if they want, could have 3 or 4 one-on-one sessions with a faculty in a week, and then for 3 weeks be self-regulating their learning. So it's a very different model. And again, we're not regulated by the Department of Ed because in the way that I think you all are, because we don't do Title IV loans.
Yeah, for us, the shorthand is RSI, regular and substantive interaction. The courses that we build and launch as part of online programs, of course, have this all designed into them. But Charlotte is a 31,000 student campus, and so we have many what we refer to as ad hoc online courses where faculty have self-selected to teach online, and that's become more prevalent post-pandemic. There's about 1,000 of those courses every semester. The RSI in those is not monitored, but it will have to with the new Department of Ed regulations around attendance in online courses. And if you haven't heard of that, then yeah, I urge everyone to take a dive into that, because one of the challenges would be there are faculty and students who do all kinds of regular and substantive interactions, but those might occur outside of the learning management system. They could occur in courseware, they could occur email, Zoom, office hours, that kind of thing. And the Department of Ed will want us to capture those in a way that we could actually, what they like to do is have students who haven't engaged in a class within 2 weeks to be automatically withdrawn. And if this is news to anyone, then once your panic subsides, do some Googling. WCET has a lot of good summaries about what this means. But from a pedagogy standpoint, of course, we want students to be continuously engaged.
It's a huge point you just made, Garvey, too, because I think there's we can think of RSI as we have to check this box because it's required. And then we can think of it as like, this is our opportunity. Like, how are we using this function of what we do to engage with our students, to build on their knowledge, to create the experience, the learning process that we want to see. And so there's a little bit of like, get outside your own head. Don't just try to check the box, but how do you do it effectively and really give it some thought? So appreciate your answer there. All right, today's theme at TLC is around AI. So I'd be remiss if we didn't go to AI, Chat GPT. So why don't we just start with 200?
All right, this is pretty short one here. So what year was Chat GPT launched for open access?
Kind of tricky because it feels like yesterday and it feels like forever ago.
Yeah, the answer is 2020. And to your point, it does feel like it was a long time ago. But I think everybody's really familiar with the product at this point and kind of what it's providing. So
2020, what a year that was.
nothing happened.
Let's stay in this category and go to 400.
All right, there's another panel question here. How are your universities using AI to adapt learning experiences?
I can take a shot.
All right, Andy, go.
There's a lot that we're doing with AI. I'll share one though that I'm most excited about. Is we partnered with a company called Learnosity, and if you haven't heard of Learnosity, they're the assessment engine typically behind all the major publishers. But they also branch out and do a bunch of other stuff. And their big announcement at ASU JSV was this new AI feedback tool. And so we've done like thousands of demos with them. We go live with this pilot in December. And basically what it is it takes the whole writing experience. And in our high school program, as you can imagine, if you have like 90,000+ students in your high school program, like it's a lot of writing assignments to grade, and it's a lot of support for students. And so what we've done with this tool is we've scaffolded the writing process and then integrated this Learnosity AI feedback tool so that the student is getting personalized feedback based on the rubric criteria every step of the writing process. And then when they get to the final assignment submission, they also have to submit the final paper to Learnosity, and it gives them this personalized feedback and guidance, and it gives them a projected grade. And then it's up to them what they do with that. The hope is, of course, that they would revise if they're not meeting the appropriate standards. And then that similar feedback and recommended grade is then given to the grader or instructor. They can edit it if they want, then they have to obviously review and spot check. But so we think that's a great way to offer more personalized and adaptive feedback to students, and focuses on writing.
Fantastic. Well, Cole, you now have homework to look into that for us.
We've launched Copilot and Gemini, made that available to all faculty, staff, and students. And to be honest, we're still in the exploration phase of what this means. I will say at a strategy level, our senior leadership has asked everyone that our messaging should be open and embracing of what AI can and will do. And that itself has been a blessing, right? To be relieved of as Phil Hill called it, like the great moral panic over cheating. There still are a few pockets of people who are concerned that this is cheating, but we have to sort of use the tool. And I'll go back to what Andy was talking about earlier with AI being a critical skill coming out of the university experience. You couple that with critical thinking, and that's where we have to go. Like, what can AI do for us in learning? And what is the piece that only the human can do? And I'm seeing some fascinating things. We've held a couple symposia on our campus for our entire learning community, and we had a student panel, and the kinds of use cases that the students were coming up with were amazing. We had one student talk about how she uses it to, she's studying Japanese, and she would practice her language skills. So she would have like an oral back and forth with ChatGPT to help her sort of practice her pronunciation and everything. So I think we are going to see many, many products come to the market, and just trying to stay open to what those different use cases could be.
Darby, you said something that I'd love to follow up on, either for you or for Andy, and that was around something along the lines of your leadership kind of set the precedent of how you can approach AI, which gave you some freedom there. How important is it, and do your institutions have, I mean, I would call it an AI policy, but I guess it's more of an AI philosophy that's shared across the institution?
Yeah, we have two big working groups that are pretty active. One is just like setting up the right IT infrastructure to handle everything. The other one right now that's just launched is a faculty focused one on learning with AI, and they're trying to identify the policy gaps that might exist around this, and just what are the opportunities? Like, where do we need to go as a campus? So we're still kind of in that strategy layer of what it is as the marketplace continues to shake out. But I think that's been, yeah, I think you use the word liberating. It really has been to take the right approach to this. It reminds me, and this is not a new comparison, but it just reminds me of the sort of moral panic over like Wikipedia in 1995, you know, that no one's going to be doing their homework anymore, you know, whatever. And even this conversation we're having right now is going to feel super dated in like 18 months.
Yeah, true.
I'm glad you said Wikipedia and not calculator. That's where my mind was going. Like, oh no, we can't use calculators because we won't know how to do math. All right. Well, Brian posted in the chat to ask the audience where they want to go. And until they tell me otherwise, I'm staying with AI ChatGPT. So let's go to the $600 question. And in the meantime, if you want me to move to a different category, throw it in the chat.
All right, this is an audience question because there's a lot going on, and I know Garvey just hinted at this, but what are some of the ethical concerns associated with AI, specifically within education? You want to throw some answers into the chat? I know with us, two of them that we highlighted were really data privacy and plagiarism, which Garvey kind of hinted at earlier. So, equitable access, nice, Garvey, that's a good one.
Garvey, will you expand on that a little bit?
Well, even just at the tools level, like, are we creating another digital divide, which I'm grateful that our university has made at least Copilot and Gemini available to all students, you know, so that, you know, those who can afford it can have it, that kind of thing. We need to make it available for everyone, so that at least access to the tools at that level.
Yeah, the AI hallucination one, those strikes me. I'm blanking on the name, but there's a professor at Wharton who's really sort of infamous for his AI presentations and thoughts. And he once coined the large language models, particularly ChatGPT. He said it's an incessantly patient intern who occasionally lies to you, which is really true. Like, if you spend enough time with AI, like you'll find occasionally it does in fact not always offer the truth. That's one. Two, the other just quick comment is, I have yet to find a tool that will to tell you that they are 100% accurate with AI detection. And so, you know, you see, Garvey, maybe more so in like the R1, you know, traditional university space, but we've seen like the potential for like lawsuits if you tell a student that they're cheating, and well, how do you know? And well, that's not 100% accurate. It's like we're in this kind of interesting space. And then, you know, what I also think about quite a bit is, well, like if you can't 100% detect it, and it might even be like the spam detectors, right? Like every time you get good enough to detect it, well, it just advances, and you're just like this never-ending chase game. Like, maybe the better solution is this is the moment for more authentic assessment. Yeah, that's where I hope it goes.
Yeah. We had an example come up today in a nursing class where students had clearly just fed the rubric into ChatGPT to generate an answer for them, and it was gobbledygook. And so we, you know, the instructor at first was like, well, this is cheating or something. It was like, it doesn't matter how they arrived at it, the answer is terrible. So she had to redo it, right? So it's like, if you're getting bad product, that's the bottom line, not the how did you arrive at it. And then that's a conversation on how you arrive at something. The other ethical consideration, maybe it's been added to the chat somewhere, is, you know, these large language models are trained on what already exists. So whatever inherent biases exist in our language, in our structures, in the writing, in the research, everything that it's being fed into it, it will perpetuate those things. Certainly, just like, I don't know, my mind goes like to, Arthur C. Clarke or something in 2001, where, the evil in HAL 9000 is, from the beginning or whatever. So
Garth, I can't help but remember the first time I met you, and the first thing we talked about was you'd written a Star Wars script. So I love the sci-fi stuff.
Forgot about that. Yeah. It's called New Cloud City. It's like this, how Rogue One takes this place right before the beginning of Star Wars. New Cloud City, kind of a bite on New Jack City, would be about Lando Calrissian and what's happening in Cloud City before, stuff goes down in Empire Strikes Back. But you're welcome.
Yes.
I love it. We did have
Fascinated by this.
before we dive off into a Star Wars discussion, we did have a request for DEI next. So I think that's where we should head to.
Yeah, let's go there for 1,000.
All right, go big or go home. All right, creating a campus culture that celebrates this rather than expecting students to assimilate can enhance students' feelings of belonging. Answer we have is cultural diversity, for those of you. I don't know if anybody's putting it in the chat or keeping track.
Let's stay there and do the 800 point question. I'd love to hear thoughts here.
All right. Culturally responsive teaching, which focuses on understanding and supporting the unique needs of marginalized students, is essential for fostering this. Answer is a sense of belonging, and I would love to get some thoughts from the panel if they can on this.
One thing that we've done in Charlotte is called the Student Experience Project, and I should know what national organization started this, but what's interesting about it was the interventions required to give students a greater sense of belonging in their courses was pretty light lift, and it came down to messaging, and sort of motivational messaging, and sort of everyone can succeed, and your success is a function of your effort, not any inherent skill you may have, that kind of thing. And the results have been outstanding, right? So that it has closed achievement gaps in the courses that it's been used in, and so forth. So there are ways to explicitly have this sort of culturally responsive teaching that is a pretty light lift for instructors.
Yeah, I was on mute. That's great. There's two maybe quick things I'd share. One is one of the required professional development sessions that we offer and requires not only our instructors, but all of our student advisors to attend is around Ruby Payne's work, Bridges Out of Poverty, and particularly how different language and cultural context can differ from people who grew up, for example, in low socioeconomic environments versus affluent. That training is always super powerful. I really, really recommend that, and it can really see the translation and the actual engagement with students. The other one that I think, for what it's worth, we have a success coach team, and we're fortunate in our model because we're at such a scale, you can A/B test and learn really quickly. And year and a half ago, we had 10 or 11 success coach pilots, and actually 10 of them were completely unsuccessful. One was wildly successful, and it was a call that a student got when they did well on an exam, and it was a congratulations, a good job call, and then a metacognitive prompt. Hey, what did you do there that caused you to be successful? And why I make that connection with Ruby Payne's work is, for a lot of our students, they don't have somebody in their environment that's championing them and that's encouraging them and celebrating, and and so how big of a deal was it to them to get that call and say, hey, I notice you, good work, and keep it up. It sounds so simple, and yet that of all the pilots, the 11 pilots we did, that was the one that really moved the needle.
That's really incredible because I think of how quick we are to reach out when something appears to be going wrong. And how slow we are sometimes to reach out to say, like, you've got this, like you're showing a lot of great, you're doing a great job. And what opportunities are there here? And just in the realm of having a culturally responsive environment, I think a lot about how do we ensure that the burden of that is not on the student to tell us what they need from us, but on us to be able to recognize that, to be in a space that we're listening and open to our opportunity. And I think you both touched on that just by talking about the development opportunities we have to learn and to gain knowledge. Anything more that you would add in terms of whose responsibility is this?
It's everyone's responsibility, just like accessibility and other things. We all have to do this work.
All right, why don't we stay DEI for one more question? Let's go 400 points.
All right. This aspect of DEI focuses on giving specific support for student success, not just equal resources. What is equity is the answer. So
Thanks, Brian. All right, we've got a call to go over to mental health and student well-being. So let's go there for 200.
All right. The National Library of Medicine defines this behavioral health phenomenon as self-doubt of intellect, skills, or accomplishments among high-achieving individuals. And the answer or question, I guess, depending on how we're doing it, would be imposter syndrome.
Quick to respond in the audience on that one. Yeah, that's a real thing. I mean, I'd love to hear from Garvey, Andy, or Brian or Cole, any stories or thoughts on imposter syndrome. I mean, that's real for students and it's real for us.
Yeah, I mean, one that's very near to me is, I'll hopefully this isn't me being too vulnerable, but when I was at Arizona Global way back in the day, I remember when I was first named the college executive dean for education, and I remember I was really excited, and then I remember it was like, oh my gosh, like what am I going to do? I have no idea what to do. And that's when I was really fortunate to hire some amazing faculty. But I remember in particular Dr. Steve Halfaker. I don't know if you guys remember Dr. H, but I remember we had like the most awkward interview with him ever. Like he was sitting on the super squeaky chair. He was trying not to be like embarrassed by it. And like, we're like, finally, I'm like, all right, like you're hired. And then I remember everybody left and it was just me and him. And I was like, can you tell me what I should be doing? So I think the imposter syndrome is real, both like literally in that example, but just generally, I think it's kind of I hate to say it, but I think it's kind of like in a way, it's kind of a good thing. I think it can keep you humble. It can keep you aware. It can keep you meek. Now, I shouldn't also take over and cause you to be constantly anxious, but I actually think there's an element to the imposter syndrome that can be healthy. I don't know, Garvey, what do you think?
For the people in my life that has struggled with this, I just try to encourage them, love on them, and remind them that every single human that's ever lived made it up one day at a time. Right? We were all making it up as we go along. So you're valued and loved, and you're doing a great job. And I think just giving that messaging to the people closest to us, that's where I can speak to it.
I think just one of the small pieces that I give to the students starting out in my Gen 101 classes, even when they're starting with us, they experience this in a huge way. And really what I tell them is just practice is going to make you feel better. Like nothing is going to make you feel better than getting out and practicing those skills and having that experience under your belt. That's what's really going to keep it at. So you have more than you know, but just keeping practicing and sharpening your skills and learning new things and putting yourself in uncomfortable situations is how you're going to keep doing it.
I agree. And the like literature on feedback that we give, when we talk about like motivational feedback, just reminding people that their success is a function of effort rather than innate ability, right? Just exactly what you're saying, Cole, is like put in the effort and you will see what happens.
Absolutely.
That's a great point. And I think for myself, when I struggle with it, it's being comfortable coming from a place of vulnerability can be hard. But when you experience yourself, I think that then you're open to recognizing it in others and being that support system for them. So, I mean, Andy, you talked about all the tests that you were running and how probably 10 of them were unsuccessful, right? Like that alone is saying it's okay to try things and fail. It's okay to do this and learn from it. And hey, we've all been there and we're gonna keep going. So real thing, and I'm sure we all have thoughts on that. And thanks to everybody sharing in the chat. I think that there's so much to learn from all of us around imposter syndrome and just those questions around anxiety. And is this the place for me, especially when we're thinking about belonging? Let's stay with this category and go to the $1,000 question.
All right, for $1,000 in mental health and student well-being, this is an audience question. How can faculty support student mental health in the classroom? Absolutely, Garvey, making resources known. One of the ideas that we had for the provided answers was flexible deadlines, something that we've talked about at length over the last couple of years with our culture of care movement, really being flexible with the students, staying in touch with them about deadlines, one-on-one sessions. Absolutely. I think that probably most universities feel the same way. There's all of these resources available to students. It's like, how do we get them in front of them? How do we get them in front of them at the right time when they're needed in the right way? How do we know that it's impacting them positively? Yeah.
A great
Following
point about
questions you can
resources
choose,
too.
yeah.
And I think resources, can be challenging when you have a lot of resources available. Of course, we should make them known to people, but to your point, Cole, it's about the right time. And sometimes it's that personal invitation or personal outreach that will do it. Because I don't know about you, but there are times where I feel like I don't need help, even though I very well could use some help. And there's times where I think, well, if I use it, it might not be there for somebody else who needs it more. So a little bit of a scarcity challenge there. So taking that stigma away from these resources and really putting the right personal touch on it. Andy, thoughts?
Hey, real quick, can I just two quick things for what it's worth? This is an area that we really explored, particularly during the pandemic, but have since explored. We found two really interesting organizations, very different approaches, but one's UWIL. I don't know if you've heard of Michael London, but he's pretty notorious in the ed tech space. And he just a couple of years ago launched UWIL. It didn't work for our model because it was just too pricey for our scale. But I really like the concept, which is that as part of a student's admission, they get like a token that they can use with UWIL. And UWIL's big thing is mental health coaching and counseling. And then the one that we are interested in exploring, I'm forgetting the name. I think it's I'll botch it, but it's actually a free resource that integrates with either your student portal or your LMS, and it essentially can identify where the student lives, and then it immediately offers the student all the mental health services that are free in their geographic location.
That's incredible. What a resource. Make a note to check into that one.
We have a request for student success. I would like to recommend 800. That works for you.
I say let's do student success 800 and then speed round through the thousands.
Okay. Student success name? Yeah. So this is a panel question. This type of learning environment where students feel safe to express their identities and perspectives is crucial for fostering a sense of belonging. The answer is an inclusive classroom, and I'd love to get your guys' thoughts on how you're building out an inclusive classroom at your institution.
We have one person who on our team who's really done a lot of work in inclusive instructional design. And so she has been working through with our whole team of instructional designers to make sure that that's true. And it's adjacent to UDL and other things, right? That there's a lot of overlaps. with how this plays out in course design. But I think it's important for, obviously all perspectives to feel, people need to feel safe. And that's like Maslow right there is, are you safe in this place and in this environment? And sort of, it can be as easy as for discussions, setting group norms of sort of what's acceptable discourse and what's not, and how are we going to treat one another in this course.
Andy, you got anything to add to that?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot that we've done. Within our staff, and I'm guessing you all do this too, but the ERG groups has been really important for us. And so we have 7 or 8 different ERG groups, and I think that's a place where our staff feels like a belonging, connection, and then those ERG groups meet together as a whole, and then also share out to the overall organization. I think fostering that kind of culture has been important. Like that's one. Maybe on like more of like a practical level, we went through a whole process with our instructional guidelines and with our style guide to be very DI focused. And so something as just simple as like the right language can matter. I really like Garvey's answer though around like the sense of belonging and how do you create like a bigger culture wrapped around that. I think that's still work for us to do, and something that I know our DEI director is super passionate about and focused on.
Great, thank you. So you want to run through the 1000s here, Stephanie? All right, we'll start with the AI ChatGPT. What challenge arises when integrating AI into the classroom? There's obviously more than one answer to this. One of the ones that we have, and I don't know if you guys want to put anything else in the chat, is faculty training and really being able to ensure our faculty understand how to leverage AI as well as look for AI and work in collaboration with what exists now, which is open access to AI platforms. I don't know if anybody has anything else they want to share on that. We can just keep moving on. I know we're getting relatively close on time.
I can't help myself on this one. Sorry, just really quick. So we have our new chief product officer joined a couple months ago. She's amazing. And she actually was the head of AI at Cengage. And so she has like a lot of expertise. And one of the things I really love about her view of AI is it shouldn't be like this thing on the side that you go to when you need help. It should be intentionally integrated. And so, for example, imagine like a history course where you train the AI to like act as Lincoln and you're having like a conversation with Lincoln. Like the difference between those two, like here's this thing on the side versus intentionally integrated history Lincoln, I think is significant. So I think the key is intentional integration, intentional use.
That's huge. And I know we're in speed round, but I'd also love to just add, I think that we think of ourselves as the expert in the classroom. And when we're learning something at the same time as our students are being introduced to it, sometimes that can cause some confidence issues in just being able to have it present and feeling like we own the facilitation of it. So challenging when we're all learning together and it's adapting so quickly.
All right, sake of time, I'm going to keep moving along here with student success and retention for 1000. Institutions that actively engage in this practice, which focuses on gathering feedback and giving students agency, can significantly enhance a student's sense of belonging. The answer is student feedback or student voice really in the instructional or institutional decision-making process. So having a student be involved in those processes is so important.
Student voice is so critical. Like I just can't shout that enough. We wonder why and how are they perceiving things and what are they learning? Let's ask them and then listen to what they have to say. So love the question, love the answer.
I feel like this is something we're continuing to get better at. It's not something that we've done as effectively as I think we want to as an institution, but continuing to hear it come up in conversations. Well, let's get student voice. Let's get feedback from students. Let's make sure that we're designing or building or creating something that works for the student. And I think it's so important. So, All right, move on to workforce readiness. Oh, it's a winner. What did I do there?
Did I win? I won, right?
Not really sure what. All right, well, never mind. So we don't have a question there. We can move on to another one. Let's go for 800 there.
All right, workforce readiness for 800. What term is often used interchangeably with digital badges to describe short, focused certifications of skills or knowledge? And for this one, we were talking about micro-credentials. We would love to hear from our panel more about what's happening in your world as far as micro-credentialing and badging goes.
I mean, I could give you a great answer, but I think, you know what? We're still floundering around with it a little bit. And I think a lot of places are there. I think this is something that's been around for a long time and is still not caught on to the way that any of us would have expected yet. It's getting there. I think it's finally getting there. And what we're seeing, I think an opportunity for us in this space would be the parent organization I work in is called our School of Professional Studies, and we offer professional credit, which is continuing ed, and we offer academic credit programs. And I think crosswalking those back and forth between each other is probably the best way forward for this. Is that if the outcomes are the same in a professional credit space, how could we crosswalk that over to academic credit, right? Because not everyone needs a full-blown degree, but they need some sort of upskilling or reskilling. And I think that's where I think employers want to see this more. It just has not, just all the reasons, right? And you know, anyone that's worked in this space for a little bit, you know that it's still kind of being sorted out. So for us, I think our best opportunity is engaging heavily with our local large employers for this until I think the rest of the market continues to shake out.
Yeah. I'm not to be provocative, but if this space had taken off, a lot of us would be out of business. Like there's just not a lot of cachet with most digital badges. I think if you think of it in the form of like gamification, and there's like these before you get like the BA diploma, there's like these things along the way that you get that sort of like carrots, if you will. I think that's interesting. I think it's interesting to think about legitimate certifications like Amazon Web Services like cloud certificate, like that's legit, like that has cachet. But does like an XYZ digital learning badge mean that much to them? Like not really. So I'm with Garvey. I think until this becomes more like a legitimate like value that you can take somewhere and like somebody actually accepts it, I think the accredited program is still where it's at.
Great, thank you. I know we're coming up on time here, so I wanted to basically provide the opportunity for either Andy or Garvey if they had any closing thoughts on what we've kind of gone through today or anything you wanted to talk through.
Do a dramatic reading of the Star Wars script, Garvey. Just kidding. You go first, Garvey.
No, I just appreciate the time that everyone took to attend this session. And really what we're talking about is how do we do right by our students? How do we continue to do the hard work every day to make them feel like they belong and that they're included in not just decision making at the campus level, but included in each classroom. So no, I appreciate how this was curated to our facilitators and the heart that everyone brought to this.
Yeah, I mean, I'd say, and I know I don't live inside of y'all's world every day, but having been other places now for 10 years, I still really believe that the culture and the people that make up your guys' university is truly special. And I haven't found it since. And I've been at large nonprofits and private equity, and I've been to different places, and I've yet to find a culture like the one that you guys have. And so I protect it. You guys have been through a lot, but you're still standing. Protect that like student-centric, innovative, passionate culture. That is truly sacred, and really had fun hanging out with y'all today. Be good.
Really appreciate that, guys. And I just want to say thank you to both of you for taking the time out of your day to join us. This was fantastic. I think it turned out even better than I imagined, when Stephanie and Cole and I were talking through how this might work. So we really appreciate you guys coming and being able to talk through a pretty wide variety of topics and sharing what's going on at your institution. So thank you guys so much for taking the time to come here today.
Thank you. And I'd love to add really quick, Andy, this is the 10th anniversary of TLC. Back in the day, at one point or another, you gave a keynote, and your message that I wrote on a Post-it note and have had at my desk for years was "Stir the Restlessness." And I am just so thankful to each of you for coming and joining today. And I still felt that underlying message of push ourselves, explore, discover, and Garvey, to your point, do right by our students. So thank you all, and thank you to our audience.
That is awesome. Happy 10-year anniversary.
So I would like to thank the audience and the presenters for a very engaging session today. Please, when you get time, take a look and look to fill out the survey here with this link. This survey is used to nominate TLC presentations for conference awards and to share your feedback on the session. And thank you all again very much. Have a great rest of your conference.
Thanks for coming today, guys.